What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So, we've got a constitutional crisis on our hands, according to the corporate press. But, it goes a little bit deeper than that. And, of course, Chief Justice John Roberts come out with a statement. And, the corporate press, they're pretending that this is some sort of red meat for them. They're latching on to this. He just made a statement, and that's it. And they're like, Trump sucks. He's violating the Constitution over here. Blah, 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 blah. It's absurd, y'all. Check this out. U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice rejects Trump's call for impeaching judge who ruled against deportation plans. Is that so? Yeah, but it's none of this is official, by the way. None of it's official, right? The calls for impeachment, that was just a social media post. And so was this. But I'm just saying, they're acting like this is some sort of constitutional crisis. Of course, we've been under, a constitutional crisis ever since Trump got reelected. The corporate press and the mainstream news, they want to make you believe that you're on the wrong side of history, folks. This is why they constantly berate, bully, and try to make Republicans look evil. This is all they do. Make Republicans look evil. They manipulate the news. They manipulate their reporting. They manipulate everything to push the narrative in a certain direction. I'll talk about this all the time, y'all. And this is exactly what they're doing here. But we're going to break it all down. In an extraordinary display of conflict between the executive and judiciary branches, Chief Justice John Roberts rejected calls for impeaching judges shortly after President Donald Trump demanded the removal of one who ruled against his deportation plans. Is that so? See, they're drumming this up, right? Instead of actually talking about Donald Trump's accomplishments, about how, hey, the price of eggs is actually going down, about, how these tariffs are actually working, but they'll tell you they're not, that these are stupid and it's going to make your prices go up. But they are actually working. These countries are capitulating to Donald Trump's to what he's demanding from them. These people are just nuts. They want to make you think there's a constitutional crisis. There's some fake outrage is what they're trying to pull, and they're gaslighting you in the process. Especially only really the people that know what's going on. That's the only people that's being gaslit by this. Is that the correct term, by the way? Let me know down in the comments. Being gaslit, or is it gaslighted? I'm not sure on that one. I was not an English major. I wasn't a major of anything. I didn't go to college, by the way. The rebuke from the Supreme Court's leader demonstrated how controversy over recent flights of Venezuelan immigrants has inflamed tensions over the judiciary's role, with a legal case challenging Trump's actions now threatening to spiral into a clash of constitutional powers. See how they're drumming this all up? For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision, Roberts said. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. That was a social media post. The rare statement came just hours after a social media post from Trump, who described U.S. Judge James E. Boasberg as an unelected troublemaker and agitator. Boasberg had issued an order blocking deportation flights that Trump was carrying out by invoking wartime authorities from an 18th century law. Now, what they're trying to tell you right there is that, it's an 18th century law. It's outdated. It's no longer relevant. Is that so? Because, murder has also been a law that has been on the books in pretty much every country all around the world for a lot longer than this country has even existed, y'all. So what do you mean an 18th century law? What that is, once again, that's manipulation into making you think, well, this is some outdated part of the Constitution. There is nothing about the Constitution that is outdated, because that's why they make amendments. We always amend the Constitution. Well, we don't always, but you get the point, right? The Constitution gets amended ever so often. So, yeah, the Constitution will never be out of date. It's irrelevant to say an 18th century law. Once again, theft is also an 18th century law. Are we just going to get rid of that or something? Like, what? Why do they do this? They make themselves look foolish and dumb as hell for adding, it's an 18th century law, y'all. It's insane. It really is. He didn't win anything. I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate. But fighting illegal immigration may have been the number one reason for this historic victory, Trump wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social. I'm just doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. Yeah, he's just getting stress off his chest. So what if he said that? Who cares? But they're turning it into a constitutional crisis, y'all. Although Trump has routinely criticized judges, especially as they limit his efforts to expand presidential powers. You hear that? Now he's trying to expand presidential powers by trying to invoke the Seditious Aliens Act, or so I think that's what it's called, Seditious Aliens, something like that he's invoking because Trinidad Aragua is an organized gang. As a matter of fact, he's labeled them a terrorist organization. So yeah, if he wants to invoke that act, sure, fine. Go right ahead if it will expedite getting these people out of here. These people are nuts, y'all. They really, really are. His latest post escalated his conflict with a judiciary that's been one of the few restraints on his aggressive agenda. Impeachment is a rare step that is usually taken only in cases of grave ethical or criminal misconduct. This is true. That doesn't mean that he's going to get impeached just because Donald Trump has a feeling. The relationship between Roberts and Trump has shifted through the years. Roberts emphasized judicial independence during Trump's first term, taking issue with the president's description of a judge who rejected his migrant asylum policy as an Obama judge in 2018. Once again, so what? Like, I don't what are you trying to say here, corporate press? Before Trump was sworn in for his second term, Roberts warned against threats to the judiciary and called for even unpopular court decisions to be respected. And what did Trump actually say like a week ago? That he would absolutely abide by the court's decisions. However, in this case, this judge is trying to rule outside of his authority. He has no authority to stop a flight that was already in the air. I'm sorry. That's how that works. This dude, Donald Trump, he's the executive, for crying out loud. He has full authority over the military, right? Sure, he can't declare war, but if he invokes this act, which he most certainly can, he has full authority over the military to carry out his whims, if you will, and especially if that whim is eliminating a terrorist organization out of the country. And these people are trying to stop it. That's a deeper question here. Why was this judge trying to stop Trump from deporting, get this, a terrorist organization? That's a good question for this guy. I would love to know the answer to it. I really would. The Chief Justice also had a prominent role in a major ruling last year that said presidents have broad immunity from criminal prosecution. The decision helped Trump avoid one of his criminal trials before the election that returned him to the White House. Trump greeted Roberts warmly earlier this month, thanking him and saying, "I won't forget," as justices attended his address to a joint session of Congress. The president said later he was thanking Roberts for swearing him into office. The latest dispute involving the judiciary comes after a court challenge of his invocation of the Alien Enemies Act, of 1798. It has been used only 3 times before in U.S. history, all during congressionally declared wars. So what? Once again, we have a terrorist organization operating within the United States. And guess what? His DHS agents have caught some of these people, and they were arrested. He's going to deport these people. This is not just regular criminal aliens we're dealing with here, right? If it's regular criminal aliens, sure, they have to go through due process, which essentially is verifying that they are criminal aliens. That's it. Nothing else. You verify that they're not citizens of this country, verify that they don't have some sort of visa or a green card or something like that, and boom, they get booted out. There is no due process, or that is the due process, essentially. Just verifying that they're not a citizen. So why this judge would attempt to stop this is well beyond my capability to understand. Like, I understand why, because he's an activist, and these people want to destroy this country for some reason. And it's just because it's Trump, right? That's all it is. And he wants to assert his authority over Donald Trump. So he says, stop that airplane mid-flight. Over a verbal order. Yeah, we'll get to that. This was a verbal command, supposed command. It's insane, y'all. Trump issued a proclamation that the law was newly in effect due to what he claimed was an invasion by the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. His administration is paying El Salvador to imprison alleged members of the gang. Yes, he labeled them a terrorist organization. He most certainly has full authority to eliminate them from the country. No judge can tell him no. Boasberg, who was appointed by President Barack Obama, convened on a hearing on Monday to discuss what he called possible defiance of his order after 2 deportation flights continued to El Salvador, despite his verbal order that they be turned around to the U.S. Yeah, he has no jurisdiction, no authority to do this whatsoever. That's why Trump said, yeah, he should be impeached, because he's trying to exert his authority. He actually said that he has equal authority to the President of the United States. Co-equal branches. No, I'm sorry, that's not how co-equal branches work, my guy. You, the judge, do not have that authority. That's the judiciary branch might. You could say that the Supreme Court justices might. But that would be all of them together. Not one activist circuit judge from Washington. I'm sorry. That's not how the judiciary works, my guy. This dude is power hungry and he's insane. The Trump administration lawyers defended their actions, saying Boasberg's written order wasn't explicit, while an attorney for the American Civil Liberties Union said, I think we're getting very close to a constitutional crisis. Oh, God. The Justice Department is also pushing in court to have Boasberg removed from the case. The Constitution gives the House of Representatives, where Republicans hold a slim majority, the power to impeach a judge with a simple majority vote. But like a presidential impeachment, any removal requires a vote from 2/3 majority from the Senate, which we can almost be guaranteed we will never get, y'all. The president's latest social media post aligns him more with allies like billionaire Elon Musk, who has made similar demands. See, they're pretending that, like, saying that somebody should be impeached in a social media post is tantamount to an executive order coming from the President of the United States. Those are very, very different. But, you know, the corporate press has to drum up drama anywhere it can. So that's exactly what they're doing. Right? We know how this process all works. We know how this process is going to play out. They are just going to take anything and everything that Donald Trump says and amplify it tenfold, manipulate it, turn it around, twist it, run the narrative however they've got to make Donald Trump look bad. But what they're not telling you is anything from the other side of this, are they? Oh, well, he just made an order, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't tell you what that order was it? Oh, and Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act. Yeah, you don't know what that is, and we're not going to explain it. Yeah, that gives him the right to deport, to get rid of anybody in this country that's not supposed to be in this country. As a matter of fact. No due process, none of that. He most certainly has that power, and there's not a single judge that can stop him from doing so, especially when there's a terrorist organization operating within the United States. These people are nuts, y'all. What we are seeing is an attempt by one branch of government to intimidate another branch from performing its constitutional duty. It is a direct threat to judicial independence. Martin Levy, a Duke University School of Law professor who specializes in the federal courts, said in an email, oh my goodness. Only one day earlier, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said, I have not heard the president talk about impeaching judges. That is right, because it was a social media post. But once again, the corporate press, they're just going to pretend and write this article as if it's a executive order to impeach this guy, as if Congress is going to seriously look at Donald Trump's social media post on Truth Social and be like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's do it. Just 15 judges have been impeached in the nation's history, according to the U.S. court's governing body, and just 8 have been removed. The last judicial impeachment was in 2010. G. Thomas Porches Jr. of New Orleans was impeached on charges he accepted bribes and then lied about it. He was convicted by the Senate and removed from office in December 2010. Calls to impeach judges have been rising as Trump's sweeping agenda faces pushback in the courts. And at least 2 members of Congress have said online they plan to introduce articles of impeachment against Boasberg. House Republicans have already filed articles of impeachment against 2 other judges, Amir Ali and Paul Engelmeyer, over rulings they've made in Trump-related lawsuits. Leavitt is one of 3 administration officials. Watch this, y'all. Leavitt is one of 3 administration officials who face a lawsuit from the Associated Press on First and Fifth Amendment grounds. The AP says the 3 are punishing the news agency for editorial decisions they oppose. The White House says the AP is not following an executive order to refer to the Gulf of America as the Gulf of Mexico, or the other way around, the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. Now you might wonder, well, hang on, wasn't this about Chief Justice John Roberts and what was going on with that activist judge guy? What the hell are they talking about the AP suing Karoline Leavitt? I have no idea. I have 0 idea. But they also lied about that too, because there's nothing freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of anything that they can get the Trump administration or Karoline Leavitt on, because those were privileged events that they were asked to come to. You don't get to dictate to the president who will show up to whatever presidential event, right? We already went over all these. These are nuts. These people are ridiculously stupid if they think that they are actually going to sue the president for not allowing them on Air Force One. You are deranged, my friend. Just because the press has gotten away with whatever the press has gotten away with since forever, just because they get to dictate, or they thought they had the ability to dictate because, whoever was president just allowed them to dictate these terms, doesn't mean that that's law. They didn't break any laws at all. On the contrary, there is no law that says the Associated Press has to be present in the Air Force One and in the Oval Office. There is no law that says that. I am sorry. There is no law that says the press have to follow the president around to special events, anywhere the president flies. I'm sorry. That's not how the Constitution works. That's not how the government works, by the way. You get access to the White House press room, and that's it, my guys. Because you don't want to listen to the administration. You don't want to change the name of the Gulf of America. It's a petty reason. I ain't going to lie. It's outlandishly petty for them to boot them out for doing so. I am laughing at it, though. I am not shedding a single freaking tear over the Associated Press for getting booted out of out of Air Force One and the Oval Office and any other presidential, whatever events may happen, right? I do not care about that whatsoever, not in the least. And good luck in court, by the way. You're not going to win. You are not going to win. Not on First Amendment grounds, that's for damn sure. Fifth Amendment, I have no idea how they're suing on Fifth Amendment grounds. I don't know the full extent of the Fifth Amendment, so I'm not even going to try to speak on that. Maybe I should have done some research beforehand. Maybe I shouldn't have, because that's not even relevant to what the hell we're talking about. right? It's just absurd that they threw that on the back end, right on the tail end of this thing. And for what reason? I have no idea. I have zero idea, y'all. I have zero idea. But this activist judge thinks he can get around the law, as a matter of fact, because, yeah, when Trump issues the Alien Enemies Act, he has good reason to, right? He definitely has the grounds to invoke this act because we have the cartels operating with impunity, or we did. Tren de Aragua's taken over apartment complexes all over the place. They're operating within the United States. This is an activist judge saying that he wants to keep these people here for some reason. Why else would he do this? Would he go to this extent? He's a power-hungry guy that just wants to oppose Trump. That's all this is. It's obstructionary. That's all this is, y'all. Do anything and everything they can to obstruct Donald Trump. So that means they're doing anything and everything they can to obstruct your will. Because if you voted for Donald Trump, you voted for this. Nobody voted for that judge at all. Ever. He got appointed by Barack Obama. And he thinks he has the same authority that Donald Trump has? I'm sorry. You are sadly mistaken, my guy. But I think I've rambled on for long enough. My jaw's starting to hurt. So y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Blows my mind. But, you know, they're turning this. They're making a mountain out of a molehill right here. Because it's a social media posts. They're pretending it's a constitutional crisis. But, hey, that's what the corporate press is good at doing. And it makes entertainment for me, at least. Y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.